What is the toughest thing you will ever face when writing a novel? What is that biggest barrier that you have to cross in order for you to get published? We're going to be talking about those things and more, and we're starting right now. Every amateur writer dreams of having their book in a bookstore, to be able to walk inside of a bookstore, look at all of those novels for sale, and seeing your own book on the shelves along with the greats. It's a dream that all amateurs would love to see become a reality. But for a lot of amateur writers, this doesn't happen. Their dream doesn't become real. They might write a whole bunch of books, send it to literary agents, but they all get rejected. But why? What happens? What stops great writers, for amateur writers, to becoming great writers? What is their book lacking? Why do their books keep getting rejected? Well, the biggest reason that the majority of amateur writers get rejected is the ability to feel. A lot of amateur writers write their books like newspapers. They tell you what has happened. They do a great job at explaining what happened, but you can't help but feel a gap between you, the reader, and the book itself. You can't help but feel as though you're not connected with the book. A professional writer knows how to pull the reader into the book as though the novel is happening to you. You're not reading a book, you're experiencing it. If the protagonist is in danger, as the reader, you feel as though you're in danger. And amateurs like to tell us what is happening to the protagonist. And we can't feel but feel a gap between what the protagonist is doing and what the reader is reading. And a lot of times it comes down to the amateur writer is simply nervous. They cannot feel. They cannot allow themselves to feel sadness or anger. Maybe there's a scene in your book which deals with someone at a funeral who is feeling sad. A professional writer knows how to feel those emotions of sadness to a point where they can allow themselves to feel, and they can incorporate what they're feeling and thinking into words, putting into the novel, so the person reading it can experience it for themselves. An amateur writer might be nervous. They might hesitate on feeling sadness within. They don't want to feel that. They're nervous to. So they end up describing the funeral just by describing what's happening. But they're not describing the emotions that someone is feeling on the inside. So the reader doesn't connect with the protagonist at the funeral. There are some doctors out there who will actually inject poison into their own body so they can make notes on what is happening in their body because of the poison. This sounds a bit extreme, but the notes that they make end up helping science and medicine greatly. It's a bit extreme thing to do for a doctor to actually inject poison into their own body, but they are so committed to understanding what happens inside of the body that they don't want to just take other people's word for it. They want to experience it for themselves. When someone reads a novel, that's what they want to do. They want to experience the book on the greatest level possible. If a character is lost in the desert with the heat, the reader wants to feel that heat. They want to know what it's like to be dehydrated. They want to know what it's like to be wandering through the desert. An amateur writer will just say that it's hot and there's a lot of sand, and that's it. A professional writer will go deep. They will allow themselves to feel that desert heat. They will allow themselves to experience what it's like to be dehydrated to a point where they can put words on the page that what the reader will then feel like it's happening to them. A lot of amateur writers can talk about problems within a family that doesn't get along. Whereas an amateur writer will hesitate. They won't want to put anything on page that's too powerful for themselves. They don't want to experience sadness while they're writing. So if they write a scene about a funeral, they will just mention it. They will just say it happened. They won't actually write about the funeral. They won't spend 1 or 2 pages talking about the funeral because it might hit too close to home. While they're sitting down at their desk writing, they don't want to feel anger or sadness or despair. And because they don't feel, they can't capture the words that are necessary to make that scene come alive for the reader to feel it. A professional writer knows how to go there because in the end, that's what it's all about. Asking yourself, can I go there? Can I let myself feel? Can I let myself feel anger? A lot of amateur writers are afraid of feeling anger. They might feel like they'll lose control, so they don't feel anger at all. They'll just say that their character is angry, but not describe it. And the person reading cannot connect. They feel like there is a gap, like they're reading a newspaper. Whereas a professional writer will allow themselves to feel angry and capture the words that express what's going on in their body to a point where someone reading it will feel like it's happening to them. If you're in cold water, an amateur writer might say they're in cold water, but a professional will describe the cold water because they can allow themselves to feel that in their mind. They can go there on such a level that it feels like it's really happening. So they can use the right description to capture what it's like to be in cold water to a point where you, as the reader, when you read it, you feel as though it's really happening to you. As an amateur writer, you have to ask yourself, can I go there? Can I allow myself to truly feel anger, sadness, fear while writing? To a point where you can capture it with words that the reader will make it feel like it's alive for them. It's a difficult thing to do. Most amateur writers cannot bring themselves to feel, whereas a professional writer knows that it's necessary to bring a scene alive, to allow themselves to go there for a brief moment, like an actor on stage in a play. If an actor on stage is supposed to be angry, but they're calm and relaxed on the inside, trying to act angry with their facial muscles, the audience can tell. You can tell when someone is pretending to be angry. But if the actor allows themselves to truly feel anger while on stage, then you in the audience, you're going to notice it. It's going to be real. You're going to notice it's completely different than being fake. And it makes the scene powerful and it makes the play great. And that's why the actor gets a standing ovation at the end, because the audience could tell that they truly went there. They allowed themselves to feel real emotions during the play. As a writer, you want to be able to feel when writing, so that way you can capture it in words that the reader can understand that as a writer, you went there. You went to the other side. If you're supposed to feel sadness, and if you're writing and you feel bored while writing, chances are you're not going to describe that sadness properly. You're going to end up making it sound weak to a point where someone reading it can tell that you as a writer did not go there. You were not, as a writer, you want to be able to step inside your novel while writing it. You want your novel to be like virtual reality. If your character is walking inside of a haunted house and they're nervous, when you're writing it, you should be stepping inside of that haunted house. You should be feeling nervous while writing. You're not in your office writing. You're inside that haunted house. So that way you can describe every little thing in detail using the 5 senses. You're not just staring at a white screen on your laptop. You can look around your office and see it as a haunted house. You can see the darkness and the cobwebs. You can hear the creaky sounds. But how is the character feeling? What is the character thinking in response to being in that haunted house? The question is, can you go there? As a writer, can you put yourself in that haunted house and see it as though it's really happening to you, to a point where you can capture the right words to make the reader feel as though it's happening to them? If you're writing about a haunted house and you're just staring at your laptop, chances are your description is going to be weak, and the reader is going to feel like they're reading a newspaper, and they're not going to want to read on. But as a writer, if you can put yourself into that haunted house, the reader's going to sense that you were there, and they are going to feel like it's happening to them. This is why we read novels. We want to go there. When someone picks up your book, they want your book to take them to another world. When you read a science fiction novel, you don't want to just read about information. You want to be taken to another world, another planet. You want to experience what it's like to be on board a spaceship. If you write a novel about traveling back in time to the world of dinosaurs, people don't want to just be told information like they would in an encyclopedia of what dinosaurs are. They want to experience as though it's real, as though they truly are taken back in time and walking amongst dinosaurs. As a writer, you have to be able to go there. You have to picture yourself walking in a world where dinosaurs are walking around you. So you can use those five senses to truly capture what it's like. What is the weather like? What do the dinosaurs look like? What do they feel like? What do they sound like? To a point where you can make it like virtual reality. Because that's what people want. When they read your book, they want to be taken to another world. They want to experience a new world. They're cheering for your book. They want your book to take them there. As a writer, you want to fulfill your reader's dream. But because if they don't, they're just going to close your book and they're not going to want to read it anymore. Because as a writer, you weren't able to go there to create a scene so real, it makes the reader feel like it's happening to them. Because all readers put themselves into a book. When you write about a protagonist, every single person reading it becomes the protagonist. They live through your novel. And that's what they want to do. They want to live through your novel and experience it as though it's really happening to them. So as a writer, you want to make sure that the book is happening to you while writing it, so you can capture it properly, so the reader can feel as though it's happening to them. Stephen King has this ability to pull you, the reader, into his novels, because when he writes, he isn't looking at his laptop. He is lost in the world of what he is writing about. If Stephen King writes about a haunted house, he is in that haunted house while he is writing. He can think and feel and see everything in great detail, and he uses all five senses to capture what it is he is feeling, what he is experiencing. Because Stephen King allows himself to go there. When Stephen King is writing, he isn't in his office. He's taking you to a magical world, someplace completely different. Because he can go there, because he can allow himself to feel anger and sadness while writing, he captures it successfully with words, to a point where when you read it, you feel as though it's happening to you. Because in the end, as an amateur writer, you have to ask yourself, can I go there? Can I feel? Can I let myself feel? And how can I use the words to capture those five senses on what it is I'm experiencing, so I can make that scene alive, so someone reading it can feel alive within. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website, where I have a tremendous number of blogs that will help you become the greatest writer you can be. Because that's what I want to do. I want to help you become published as fast as possible. In fact, I'm going to leave a link to my website in the description down below, so you can visit it as fast as possible. And if you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my next video on how you can create the perfect look for your villain in your novel. In fact, I'm going to leave a link to that video right here, and you can click on it right now and start watching.